Now, this is kind of the whole point of the talk, and I'm like an hour in, I'm just getting to it. I've put a couple laws up here, and I say laws, but the talk about Indigenous laws raises all kinds of issues, and I can't get into it at this point, but I have to note that I do recognize that the notion of laws and cognizability and what constitutes a law and how it's understood and how it's intelligible to the Western justice system, that's tough stuff. The point is, I think these are short-term, well, all of these should be conceptualized in short, medium, and long-term time frames. All of these are types of Indigenous law that I think could work. And I'm going to end with this, and then I'm going to call you guys out. So I'm going to go through each of these and try and apply them to the issue and try to apply them to what's going on in Treaty 8 and just give some examples and ideas. But, you know, I was really sick this week, and I've been having a hard time just trying to wrap my head around this. So forgive me if it doesn't make perfect sense and if there's some issues. This is a work in progress very much so. But I'm trying my best to do honor to what I was taught and honor to the subject at hand. So I'm trying. Duty to learn. It was really interesting. We were at the CLE conference. A couple people in this room were at that CLE conference. And Chief Justice Finch put this paper and this talk forward, and he said that we in the legal profession have a duty to learn. It's not just a duty to consult and accommodate. We have a duty to learn other Indigenous legal traditions. And he did so for very interesting reasons. And what I found really cool, aside from the fact that a sitting high-ranking judge called out the entire legal profession saying you have to step up to the plate and recognize that you have an obligation to not actively sit back in your own safe place, but prepare to engage with the unknown in the face of what it might offer all of us. I mean, aside from that being a very beautiful and very brave expression, he did something, and the way he put it was analogous to what I saw in my history. So he said we need respect and receptivity to address some of the issues with learning new things. And he said that we have to prepare to enter truly unknown landscapes, legal, ethical, and cultural. That's an interesting idea. That's an interesting type of law. What I was taught when I was a kid and I was hunting and I was learning to skin in particular, because we're trapping people where I'm from, is that we had to have respect in a very similar way. We had to be truly understood, and this is a phrase my mom told me from my grandfather, you don't know what you don't know, and there's a lot of wisdom embedded in that because you truly have no conception of what you might not know. So to begin to engage with the unknown is almost it's an epiphany-causing experience by very definition, because you don't know, you have no idea, but to know that you don't know what you don't know is a step in the right direction. And there's an interesting point. This is from the Dene side, and I'm going to share this with you. Actually, Dene's side too. We're not taught so much as reminded. And the reason is that we carry it within us. We carry the knowledge inside of us. You know, I wasn't taught how to hunt. I was reminded by watching. Now, I think a lot of people would have a hard time believing that they're being reminded how to learn other legal traditions. That's pretty complex stuff. But we all are easily reminded in our moments of intimacy with, well, that's the wrong word, our moments of closeness with nature. Yeah, right? There's like some mental images there. Oh no. Okay, let me rephrase. We are all reminded by the grandeur of nature and our insignificance. That's the reminder. The reminder is that we are small and the world is great and bigger than us. And I think that's a consistency. You know, my reminding nature was more in sort of like how do you take apart, you know, a marten and get it ready for sale. And that's more of a practical reminder, but at the same time there's a simple truth that we held it within us. And the very simple truth, the base truth of what we're doing in my territory and other territories, unconventional energy development has a great risk. It doesn't really need to be taught. You just need to be reminded. And I think that's a beautiful idea. I think that's an ethos that can manifest in a lot of different ways. I think it could take different expressions, both legally and in soft law and just your thinking and theory and philosophizing, academic research, whatever. But it's short, it's easy. I'm hoping some of it happens right now. And that's why I want to share that with you as an idea for the expression of law. Another side of this, this is a bit of a larger term, longer term vision. Stewardship, guardianship, and what they call kaitiaki. Kaitiaki is a Maori word. The law of guardianship, kaitiaki tana, relates to my experiences in New Zealand and what I was taught there about how to be a person of mana, of stature, to have significance on this side and the other world, You have to take care of your land. That's one of the bases of your power. That's the base of, one of the bases of your authority on this earth, is your ability to maintain your land. Now, what would that look like if it was deployed? What would those ideas look like if they were deployed? Because they definitely have them in the Dene and Danizak cultures as well. What would that mean? Now, I was thinking about the laws of hunting. Now, when we hunt, our respect isn't evidenced through the words that we say. It's evidenced through the skill with which we hunt. It's evidenced through the placement of our bullets. It's evidenced through how we take care of our tools. It's evidenced through the ceremony we undertake before and after. It's respect not of word but of action. And I think that's a legal principle, that words are meaningless. And words are very meaningless when you think about the commonalities of conflict in our territory. If there's no credibility, actions speak louder than words. If there's uncertainty, action in the face of uncertainty rather than complacency means a lot more. And that's how I see these laws applying. Sanction through physical and non-physical consequences. When hunting, there's physical consequences to be sure if you mess up, both for the quarry and for yourself in some cases. But equally important in our traditions is non-physical consequences. And the corollary and the point I want to put forward here is the issue of regulatory capture and how to incentivize or disincentivize people who have to regulate the industry. I don't think you can say to a regulator, you know, we might sanction you for conflict of interest someday. I think people have to have an ethos about them. They have to have an embedded belief and perspective on this stuff to truly engage with these questions. I think that's the only way to move forward with the really deep conflicts that we see. And the place I learned that lesson was when I shot a black bear when I was 15 years old, the same day I shot my first moose. Because it took me years to realize this, but when I killed that bear, I killed one of my brothers. Because well, it's a long story, but the consequences of that action are going to be felt by me throughout my life, but they won't manifest physically, I hope. And what I'll carry with me, because I shouldn't have killed that bear. I should have fed him a piece of my first moose and honored this bear, the starving young bear that came to like eat off my kill. It would have been a great thing to share with him, but I was too young and scared, so I killed him. I have consequences that are carried with me, but those consequences aren't physical. Again, I hope. And there's great power there. There's great beauty there, even though it's a negative thing. Because what that means is that our laws can still manifest absent written word, absent expression, absent the sanction of the state or my family or my nation. It is there just because it's there. Now imagine what that kind of power would look like if we were looking at how to regulate the oil and gas industry. What if the regulators had something equally compelling that directed them? Now some might argue they do, some might argue they don't. I don't know. From what I've seen, I would question very deeply, despite the fact that there are good people out there, despite the fact that there are good people all over the place. From what I've seen just as a collective, I'm not so sure the heart beats strongly in some people. But I wonder if maybe we could make it do that by adopting these legal principles, by looking at ways to make it understood that there is consequences for these things. Ceremony, those more traditional ways of knowing, those are ways that might be used to help people understand the consequences and the notion of uncertainty and risk as we look at unconventional energy. We're kind of going long here and I want to leave some time. Yeah, holistic thinking, I think that's self-explanatory, but there's a lot in that precautionary approach. This is how I applied them. Twin Sisters Native Plant Nursery. The Soto, West Moberly, they've partnered with a private sector person, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous because it should have been the government that supported this years ago when this idea was first floated by my mom. They're trying to get rid of the adversarial approach by using native plants to reclaim the gas patch. And that's not just an economic generator. That's not just a way to fix the land, although it is both of those things. It is an expression of the law that to fix something that's broken, you have to bring life to it. You have to give it something beautiful. You have to give it something to become full of that energy again. And so the dead space that is an old abandoned oil and gas well grows again by our own plants. and we plant things, we're hoping to plant things. This isn't fully running yet, but it's happening right now. They've been gathering seeds for 2 years. We're hoping that we will cure and bring life back to these gross, toxic pits all over our territory. Now, that's bringing life back to the land, but I hope you understand it's also bringing life back to the relationship we have with the oil and gas industry and the relationship we have with the regulator. Do you guys understand? That's a way to bring life back. That's a different kind of law manifesting. Now, what if that law was sanctioned and supported by the state? What if that idea that to fix something you need to bring life back into it? Like, for example, what if water, the greatest and most precious life-giving thing on earth, was used to bring life back into the sick relationships up in Northeast BC between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people or within Indigenous communities? Could that happen? Could it work? What would it look like? I don't know. You know, this is something I've been wrestling with for a while, but it's an idea. Medium term. This is something that we're moving. Oh, sorry. Caribou hunting. On my Daneza side, we stopped caribou hunting in the 70s. I've never hunted a caribou. I had to go like 3,000 kilometers north to find caribou to hunt because we don't hunt them anymore. I never have. So that's an example of our law using holistic thinking, adaptive management, recognizing the caribou in the decline and very actively changing our behavior in the face of it, using a precautionary approach, and sanctioning through various means and showing our respect through actions when it comes to an issue. They're still dying. Coal mines are a big issue because coal is often up on the mountain ranges where the caribou like to go in the winter. They're susceptible to wolves in the low country, so they have to see them coming, and that's what the lichen is. And then pure herbivory, another point. We're trying, my people burn, we always have, lots of Indigenous people do. It's a great way to maintain the landscape. So what we're trying to do with Fort Nelson is get a program where we retake burning authority and we reclaim the stewardship and the guardianship of our land through directed burns to create grasses to keep bison off of the roadways. Because aside from killing people and crashing cars, it kills really delicious meat. It's not very good after. Doesn't mean it's not edible, but oh no. The idea that, again, that we use the elements that we have and we use our old tradition not only to create something beautiful, but to try and manifest a new way of sovereignty on our land is a very beautiful idea. And again, I just wonder what would happen if we didn't have to fight tooth and nail to make that happen, if we didn't have to fight with MOT every time we wanted to burn. We've been burning for thousands of years, and granted, it's gotten away from us once or twice, no doubt, but, like, please, give us a chance. You know, imagine what that would look like if people really reclaim that tradition. You know, imagine what could happen up there, especially because the caribou are in the massive decline. We've been going pretty long. This is a really interesting idea, and I want to give this its due credit. The Whanganui River was granted legal personality last year. Huge development. And there's a lot of really interesting co-governance initiatives in New Zealand, in Aotearoa. This is a couple examples. This is from the work of Jacinta Ruru, a friend. It's used with her permission. In Treaty 8, we're trying to achieve the same thing. And it's a long and hard road, and it's a young idea. But the point here is that, like, for example, and I was hoping to share some stories with you. I've been recording my grandfather as he slowly passes on, and he has stories about the animals. In our territory, the animals and the humans, the delineation between us isn't as thick as we think it is. There's a time when we used to be able to cross over very easily. And so that's a very clear expression of personality. I mean, animals were people, people were animals. So this whole human, non-human binary is just ridiculous in our tradition. So why not extend legal personality to animals, or at least in some qualified sense? And the rivers, I mean, literally the lifeblood of our people, the means by which we transfer, why not give them a degree of legal personality to recognize that they're dynamic entities that move and change and develop and adapt and die? And lakes. Lakes is a big one. I'll talk with the Dene Waterheart at the end. Lakes are beautiful and amazing things, and they have great potential, particularly for climate change. If you guys ever get a chance, look at, I forget his name right now, David Schindler. David Schindler's work on lakes as sentinels and integrators for climate change, where I'm hoping that in Northeast BC we're going to start using lakes to quantify airshed impacts of oil and gas development, because lakes in the wintertime, they get the deposition from flare stacks and stuff like that, and then when the ice melts, it sinks to the bottom. So you might be able to actually, with appropriately sensitive instruments and sampling, get a decent sedimentary catalog of what's been happening in your territory. But that's pretty technical stuff, and I'm not an expert in that yet. But it's stuff I'm interested in. I was wondering if that ability of lakes that's unique to them to collect and store that information for us, if only we respect them enough, is sufficient basis to extend to them a degree of respect legally and give them a degree of legal personality, or something equivalent. Like if you buy a lakefront title, you have a positive covenant to do or support X sampling activity, for example. And then I had this idea that what if, because of the treaty relationship, because the treaty adheres to everybody, Indigenous and non, on our territory, what if the treaty relationship adhered to the gas that came out of our territory? What if you had to live in peace and friendship with the resources you took? What if, you know, the uranium and plutonium and all that stuff that was taken out of, I'm not sure what was taken actually out of the Northwest Territories to make the bombs? What if there had to be a relationship with that thing, with those things, before it was taken? And, you know, and this is long-term stuff. This is very theoretical. Like, I don't even have the idea nearly full in my head yet. But I wonder, what about the treaty relationship, which is the basis for the assertion of sovereignty in my territory by the Crown? What if that law embedded in that adhered to the things that came out of that territory? What would that mean for CO2 production? You know, it's a question. I'll challenge you guys to, you know, think about that. What might that be for those of us in the legal profession? What? Banishment. Banishment is something that our people have always had. You know, what they call wittigo, you know, in Cree traditions, those who consume, eaters of flesh. Consumption and overconsumption can take many forms. And I'm not pointing to anything in particular. But what if we could banish legal personalities? We used to be able to banish people. What if we could banish, and I know there's so many issues, but it's just an idea. It's a law that we have. We used to banish those who were inappropriate for our territory for many reasons. What if we could do the same thing with those who violate our trust, who violate our land, who violate the thing that all of us share, violate the treaty? What would that look like? These are just some of the operators in our territory. I'll try and wrap it up here because we're going pretty late. I'm going to share with you a story, and despite the fact that I'm half Dene, this I picked up from the Dene north of me. You know, again, we're southern Dene. The Dene water heart, as I've read and learned about it, and I've been trying to find people to tell me, but no one knows where I'm from, so I've just been reading, is a story where a medicine man, I'm going to try and pronounce his name, Kaye Dawye, who lived in Satu, which is Great Bear. He lost, a very powerful shaman, lost one of 4 hooks. And at that time, hooks were rare and dangerous. So he went and, in his dreams, shape-shifted and took the form of a fish and went down to the lake. And in the lake, he found the great heart of the water heart. And it's the heart that beats and moves and shares the life of water with all waters. And they say it's up in Great Bear. Now, what is the law that comes around that? I mean, to my mind, that's a very simple expression of life in water. Now, I think that's a pretty easy way to extend legal personality in a way, because it has a heartbeat by our tradition. Why shouldn't it be given some kind of standing, some kind of recognition? It's not a mere commodity. It has a heart. What would that mean? But there's a dark side to this. So he found the water heart, guarded by all the fishes. And he was told to protect it for all time, because that was the thing that gave the water its purity and gave the water its vitality, and that all waters come from it. And that lake's a very unique lake. It has a lot of significance, both from a scientific perspective, never mind the traditional side. But one of the last old medicine men, and this is a series done by CBC North back in the day, was talking about the Dene water heart and talking about Great Bear Lake. And what he said was that the hard side of this story is that the prophecies go that in the end times, the water heart will be the last pure heart on earth. It'll be the last pure place for water, and all the peoples of the world will come to the north for clean water. Now, what does that mean for law? What does that mean when we see long-term water license applications in northeast BC upstream of the Athabasca and the Liard? You know, and I'm not asking you guys to buy into the theory and buy the hype and buy the myth and the history or the law that comes therefrom, at least for me. But I hope you can see at least the potential and the implications, because when you think about resource conflict, can you think of what it would mean for an elder when they've seen uranium mining and oil and gas, the traditional sense, and now they see unconventional, and they see the water being taken and injected with chemicals and sand. What does that mean for the water heart? You know, what does that do? You know, and again, I'm sorry, I can't articulate this stuff really well right now. I'm having a hard time even understanding it myself, but I think there's great potential and great beauty in that idea. This little map here is from a story called The Last Great Water Fight in the Walrus, that storied and staid Canadian publication. Now, WAC Bennett Dam, already built. Site C Dam, proposed. Dunvegan Dam, proposed. Fort McMurray. BC oil and gas fields, water heart. Look at this watershed. What does it mean? What does it mean if the water heart is true? What are we doing now? No, those Denny in the north, they've got their language strong, they've got some really cool things going on. And that causes me great concern. But I think there's potential there if only you guys and I, we could somehow figure out a way to translate these laws and traditions into something meaningful now. I wanted to go through the New Zealand examples, but I'm not going to because there's a lot there. Oh, this is a fun slide. Litigation strategies. I'll let that one go. Whoa, there you go. Now, what I'm going to do as I conclude, I've been reading a lot of John Borrows, as I do. Now, most of you guys have seen this, but I'm going to play this for you anyways.
My daughter and her husband brought him home. And then Grandpa was holding him and said, "You're going to be a great hunter, boy."
Anybody who can throw a hatchet and sue you is a force to be reckoned with.
I never thought life could be like this. I never once in my wildest dreams thought I'd be doing the kind of things I'm doing now. The territory that I come from in northeastern British Columbia is one that was heavily developed. First they came for the trees, they came for the gold, they came for the fur, they came for the children, they came for the oil, they came for the gas. Then they started taking the water, and they're using the water to fracture the bones of Mother Earth. Have to get back to those places where the wisdom was embedded and learned in the first place.
We believe there is sufficient water in northeastern British Columbia to support current and future unconventional gas development.
They are using and destroying massive amounts of water up there.
Places that people have gone and fished for years, they're not finding fish anymore.
These wells are leaking. This is going to ruin the groundwater.
We have much more abundant resources of gas than we had ever fathomed.
We've gotten to the point where, in our desperate need for hydrocarbons, we actually, by definition, inject poisons into the earth.
Almost every house, at least every other house, has probably had someone with cancer or someone in their family with major birth defects.
Kids, when they get exposed to chemicals, I have a birth defect, 18 surgeries, 7 plates, 20 screws in my face. And this isn't a game. It's real people, real cultures.
They're the heroes, my elders, and they were handcuffed like they were dangerous criminals.
We have this perceived enemy outside, but our fight is not with that enemy. Our fight is a psychological fight.
Half of my family supports the industry and half works very actively against it.
My brother has to take care of his family, so he's up there too.
I think to some degree we are all fractured within ourselves.
How do we deal with two different worldviews and value systems existing in our behavior?
How do you defend your home when something much bigger and more powerful wants to take it and destroy it?
The reconciliation now is much bigger than just our two societies. It's about water and the ability we have as cultures and societies to mitigate our destructive behavior in the face of unknowns.
The fundamental question for all people, native and non-native, what kind of world do we want to live in?
If Canadians decide to refuse this impoverished vision of our country as the world's gas tank, we can be a game changer.
I want to be the tip of the spear, at least a part of it. These are the words of a young man. Hold on, whoa, 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 whoa. No, thank you. But aside from self-promotion and self-aggrandizement, there's a point to that. I was reading John Borrow's late last night in quasi-feverish state, so I'm kind of sick right now. And I read this phrase where he was talking about different theories of law, and he said, any law that doesn't include a story is not a law worth following. Now, what I've shared with you tonight is my hopes, my dreams, my theories, my fears, my shame, and my life, piece of my story. Now, my question to you is, does your law cause you to have an obligation as a result? Do you guys have an obligation now as a consequence of what I've shared tonight? As a consequence of what I've shared with you and the consequence of what we've shared here? As we talk about laws and laws as solutions to resource conflicts in my territory, now that you've seen, now that you've heard, now that you've taken a piece of what I have to give and I've taken a piece of your time, we've had a transaction, does your law compel this relationship to move in a certain way? And if it does, what might that look like? And if not, c'est la vie. At least you've had a discussion on the issue. So with that, I'd like to end, and join me in thanking the Hulkamanium Treaty Group, Ruben, and Lawyers' Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the Vancouver Public Library. Thank you for your time.